I would have no business, I think, without Instagram. You know, like all of these things are just complete no's for me. Every brilliant idea encourages another great idea because you're not charging enough. And so, you know, at every wedding that you do, something like that happens that you're like, I will never regret not doing that.
Okay, so Kate, I'm so glad to welcome you and actually sit down and talk to you a little bit. I've just taken your portraits. How did that feel?
It felt great. Such a nice change of a Tuesday morning to be out speaking to you lovely people instead of frantically typing behind my desk.
And today we're actually going to be talking about our much dreaded L word, luxury. But before we get into it, there are 3 questions that I'd like you to answer. Now, there are some rules. I know you love rules. So you can only say yes or no to these ones. And the last one, you can elaborate a little bit. I'll give you that. And I do have my cheat sheet because there's a lot to unpack here. So remember, you can only say yes or no. Are you ready?
Hit me.
Okay. Do you think Instagram is hurting more the industry than it's helping it?
No.
Ooh. Have you ever said yes to a client that you knew in your heart it wasn't the right fit for you?
Oh, yes. Only once.
Okay. Haven't we all? Lastly, have you ever worked with a supplier who positioned themselves as luxury but didn't deliver a luxury service?
Yes.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Now, you're allowed to elaborate a little more on this one. What do you understand luxury to be? And can you give me an example? I know you work in the industry, but I would love to hear from you. What is luxury in your words?
I mean, it's a real buzz topic at the moment, isn't it? And I think everyone is really trying to decide what luxury means for them. I think luxury can often be confused with opulence. And for me, it's not opulence. That's a totally different thing. Sometimes that comes as a side effect of luxury. But I suppose if I'm to close my eyes and think about how luxury feels, it's spaciousness and it's calm, authenticity. It's, you know, being allowed at the scope to create an experience that feels very original to that time and to the people who are offering the experience and who are also receiving it. I do think that there can be elements of opulence within that. And so, you know, I like to think of, for example, tablescaping not as, you know, a show of wealth or, you know, showing off in any way. It's part of a gift in the experiential realm that, you know, that you give to your guests. And so if it's approached in that way, yes, I think that's luxury. But it's not about, you know, trying to pack as much decor into an event that you can't afford. Mm-hmm. And it should feel natural. I think that's the key.
Beautiful. So in your words, luxury is something that you experience.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I suppose that's something that I've come to understand more the longer that I've been working at this level. And clients at that luxury level expect that sort of quiet confidence rather than a scramble to present, if you know what I mean.
Yes, exactly. And recently I've actually removed the word luxury from my own Instagram.
What about the SEO?
I know. But mainly I think it came to me because I received an email from a client, a potential client, and she told me she was having a small gathering of 30 people, and it was going to be in her parents' home, and it was over 3 days, 30 people. And she was like, I'm just wondering, do you only shoot luxury weddings in manor houses and in beautiful castles, or would this be something that you would do? And it just got me thinking, you know, what I understand luxury to be in my own words as well. And I think, yes, there is the aspect of opulence, as you're saying, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Luxury is having your favorite people in one place all together, celebrating you and celebrating this new chapter. And, families coming together, the time to be together, over 3 days, that to me is luxury.
It is. And I think we can take that for granted, can't we? Because we see it so frequently. And because I suppose we live in a place where we enjoy celebrations, and it's something that is, as I said, taken for granted somewhat. But I suppose if you look at it in relation to maybe other places in the world where, that would be a huge luxury that maybe people might only experience once in their lives. That in itself is luxury, right?
Yeah.
So it could be something that's very simple to define, like how lucky are we that we get to work in this sphere and give people these, experiences that they'll remember for their lives.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And for those that are watching us and don't know about you and your story and how Love and Gatherings came to be, tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, well, I
know you love talking about yourself.
I love talking about myself. I suppose I came to the events industry in quite a roundabout way. I didn't work for another planner. I never worked in events. But in fact, when I started Love and Gatherings, my first wedding was within Love and Gatherings. So it was it was sort of a fake it till you make it kind of situation. Now, that was 10 years ago. Before that, I worked in magazine publishing for 10 years.
Wow.
And I was I worked at Image Publications, and for the last 4 years of that, I was the editor of their wedding magazine. So that's how I joined the wedding industry, became really familiar with, how the whole industry works, and got to know the best of the best within that. And as I, came to know some of the wedding planners, I started to think, I like that. I think I could do that. It's a very similar skill set. It's about combining creativity, organization, management of a team of creatives, and creating something that feels original and personal, but yet within each wedding sort of has a template.
Yeah.
Each magazine has a template, but each one needs to feel original to itself.
Yes.
So I found my skill set kind of transferred quite easily, and I felt very comfortable within the industry. So started that, and luckily also had a lot of contacts in sort of the media marketing realm, and began doing a lot of brand events. And
Amazing.
so at the beginning, it was supposed to be a combination of brand events and weddings, but I found the brand events were taking like 90% of my time. And it's quite difficult to do a wedding, which is something that unfolds beautifully over a year and a half, creating this lovely personal relationship with a couple, with a brand who wants something next week with no budget. And it has to be completely different to what they'd seen the week before.
Yeah.
And it's just like boom, 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 boom. And I felt my attention was constantly being pulled from where I really wanted to be.
Yeah.
So I think it was about 3 years in, I made the terrifying decision to stop taking on brand work.
How did that feel?
It felt great because, it was amazing to have it at the start because it was income straight away, and it meant the business just began running, and I gained like invaluable experience. Those events are tough. And so, it served its purpose, and I'm really grateful that I had it.
Yeah.
But it was scary to stop. It was great and scary to stop, but it did mean that the wedding business got the attention it needed, but that's a slow burner. It's about building a reputation, and that takes time.
Yeah.
But I was able to do it because I felt when the brand work was taking so much of my time, I couldn't just quite get into weddings in the way that I wanted to do. So that, I guess it's maybe 7 years now that we've been solely focused on weddings, and I'm so glad.
Many lessons learned?
many lessons learned along the way.
Now, at the start, you said that you don't believe Instagram is harming the industry. Now, with how fast aesthetics and design and, people want to create something new and fresh, and this is, millions of posts and photos every day between Instagram and TikTok, how do you find inspiration to create new things and like put maybe your client's background into your design and something that you have wanted to create for a while? How do you do all of that in this fast-paced industry, and there's photos being shared, millions of photos every day?
I do it the best that I can. I mean, I'm not saying I'm old, but I didn't grow up with Instagram as, a piece of my toolkit. It's something that I've had to get to learn to. I mean, towards the end of my time in magazines, I remember we were starting to see Instagram. We were like, what is this? This is not going to take off. But I mean, I would have no business, I think, without Instagram. And I'm so grateful for it. It's, it's how I've met 70% of my clients. It's how, as you say, I've learned about what's happening across the globe. How did anybody know? Yes. How did we see what people at the pinnacle were doing? It's not about, oh, they're doing that in America, we better do that here. Yeah. But every brilliant idea encourages another great idea, I think. And it's, I suppose, it's about finding the balance. You don't want to be ruled by it, but I think it opens so many avenues. And such great conversation starters with clients. A lot of clients, I suppose maybe 50% of my clients know exactly what they want. The other 50, they don't. But when you show them something great, they're like, yes, that's what was inside my mind. That's what I want. And so for that reason alone, like what an amazing tool Instagram is.
And does it take long for you to get there, that you're showing them? Does it take many conversations that you're trying to get to know them and understand what's important to them? How long does that process take for you, or does it depend from wedding and client?
I think it varies. I mean, sometimes I'll have a client that will arrive with a full Pinterest board. They know exactly what they want, and I'm getting a very clear brief, and that's cool. But what's also cool is, I currently have a client, and she's just so busy, and she's got a really cool aesthetic, but she'd put no time into thinking about what she wanted. And she didn't even have time to do a Pinterest board. But I felt like just from the chats we had and just from looking at her, I got to know her, and I feel I've become pretty good at seeing inside people's minds. And on the basis of, I think, 2 images, presented her with a mood board. And she was like, how did you do that? She's like, that's exactly what I want. I mean, down to the napkins and the stationery. She's like, kind of looking at me weird. And I was like, I don't know how I did it, but I just kind of thought that's what you'd like. And I'm delighted that you do. Now, that wouldn't work for everyone, because some people, it's just the way they operate. And I'm probably quite like this. Very didactic. Something has to be exactly the way they imagined it. So I suppose it's just about, this, I suppose, is the biggest task I find in getting to know a client, is like, what kind are you? Yes. Are you the kind of person who will appreciate something for itself and just be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go down that road. Or have you been planning this wedding for the last 3 years and you know exactly what it is? And it's just about rolling with that. I think I've become pretty good at. Yeah.
Do you have a preference, when they come, or is it nice to have a mix?
It's nice to have a mix, because even just from a style perspective, I've had some really cool brides that I've learned things from. That I've been like, I never would have actually thought to do that, but that is so cool. But then it's also so fun to have a client who's like really not aesthetically focused and is like, I trust you. I want you to tell me what to do. And I'm like, amazing. Are you saying this is my wedding?
Yeah.
And I get to really imagine something from scratch. So good to have a mix. I don't think you could, I would feel a little bit I think like I was missing out on something if I didn't, if all my brides knew exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
And it would also maybe suck up too many of my ideas if I had to come up with every single one from scratch. So I think and that's the way the world is, a mix. And I love it that way.
That's amazing. And I would love to know a little bit of your process, because I think what makes wedding planners amazing is that at the core, you're really matchmakers. And it's a big part of your job. You know, you get to know the client, their expectations, things that they love, how they envision their wedding unfolding, if it's a wedding day or, you know, multiple days. How do you approach selecting the suppliers that are going to make all of this come together? Because you're the mastermind at the top, and you then get to, and I know sometimes clients may come with, okay, I want this person and that person. But if it's a client that you're picking suppliers, how do you approach that whole process?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's multifaceted. You know, firstly, I will ask them to do the Pinterest board so I can, you know, get a sense of what they're drawn to aesthetically. Budget obviously is important. But usually from the very first call that I have with them, I can tell whether, say if we're talking about photographers, are they going to be the bride who wants an hour of portraiture in the middle of the drinks reception and things to be very posed and everything to be perfect? Or does she not really want to know her photographer's there and they're just in the background doing docu stuff? Yeah. Sometimes I'm surprised, you know, there can be a bride who I think is quite meek and mild, and then it turns out on the day it's like photo shoot. But, you know, that, and so I say that to clients, it's like, I want to understand how they want the day to feel, what their priorities are, what's important to them. You know, do they want to do a first look so that they're there all throughout the drinks reception with their friends, or do they want that magical moment on the aisle? And I start to kind of build this story of who that client is.
Yeah, perfect. And then that's how you approach, especially photographers and videographers. Exactly, you know, this is more a documentary photographer will be a perfect fit for this client. This client loves film, so a film photographer would be ideal. Or, you know, they're really into the poses and want to look perfect, not a hair out of place. So
exactly.
An editorial photographer will.
And also personality. We, like, this might be scary to you, but we have, like, when we're recommending vendors, we have a little profile for each vendor that we slot into the clients.
That's interesting.
The clients' profiles so they can review. And, you know, it'll be things like, this is what their style, like, this is their, you know, their working style. And like, you know, samples of the work, but also like really sound. This person is really sound. I feel like your personalities are going to click. They're not going to be all up in your face. They're just the right amount of crack. Yeah. They'll direct you exactly as you want. They're happy to have a call with you in advance. You know, and I think that's why we're here, because otherwise you can get a lot of the other information, such as what your, you know, shooting style is from your Instagram or your website. Yeah. It's about, like, we've tried and tested these people and we know they're good skin. And, you know, like your wedding day, you don't want somebody who's annoying you, even for 10 minutes. It has to be the perfect vibe. So I actually think that's probably our most important job as planners, is to kind of filter that. Yeah. I'm pretty strict on it.
That makes so much sense, because, you know, from the morning they're there with hair and makeup, and that pretty much sets the tone for if they're stressed or if they're calm and things are going according to the schedule and the timeline. And then photography and videography, and if they're having a content creator, they're there pretty much the whole day. So like you're saying, personality has to be something. I think work, you know, like you're saying, you can see from Instagram. It is the personality that is such a big thing. And why Dan and I also, we want to have that call with them ahead of time, because we also want to make sure that they're the right fit for us. Yeah. You know, it's amazing if, you know, they love our style, but if personalities aren't there, or if I feel like, okay, this is not, and I've had times that I emailed them back and be like, I think what you're looking for is exactly this other photographer.
Okay,
yes. I had a call with a bride and they're like, we just want somebody who's a fly on the wall. And I think I hate this sentence so much because I'm nothing like a fly on the wall, and I've really come to hate it. So as soon as she said that, and she's like, I don't want to see you. And I completely understand the style, but I was like, okay, this is a completely different style to ours. And even all the photos that she liked on Instagram and that she was showing me, I was like, I posed that to a T.
Okay, interesting.
So sometimes I think it's educating them as well and reminding them, okay, if it is, you like some of those photos, but the majority that you don't want to know they were taken, then, I'm not the right fit. And I think it works really well rather than me trying to be something I'm not on a wedding day.
I mean, you're spending more time with this couple than, with the bride. You're with her more of the day than her bridesmaids are. Yeah. So it's actually really, it's respectful, I think, on both sides to, you have to get on. It's so important.
Yeah, 100%. We talked a little bit about how you've had the unfortunate experience of working with somebody who positions themselves as a luxury service, a luxury brand, but didn't quite deliver luxury on the day, what you were expecting or what the clients were expecting. Can you give me an example or talk to me a little bit about that? Or maybe some things that in your head is like, okay, this person is doing right. This translates to, not just how much they're charging, but what they're saying they're going to do.
I mean, I've had maybe 2 experiences of that. For the most part, I feel we're pretty good at judging the kind of service we're going to get from a supplier and, put a lot of work into understanding someone's reputation. And actually, you know what? We've never made it to a wedding day with bad service.
Amazing.
That's what I'll say, is we've come a certain way into, the planning process and realised, no, this is not working. This is not what we were expecting. And it's not what our clients deserve to have on the day, because I feel like we're guardians of that day.
Yeah.
But where I think things go wrong with suppliers trying to position themselves within the luxury realm is maybe forgetting about the difference between the personality you want to project, say on your Instagram, for example, and how important and how good it is, and how I'm not amazing at that, but how maybe the slightly younger generation is better at self-promotion. But how, when the wedding day comes, that needs to be completely parked at the door.
Yeah.
You can be, and you know what? It's like, it is a balancing act, because in order to get yourself into the luxury sphere, you do need to have a personality that you project, and you want to attract people to you.
Yeah.
But when the wedding day comes, you don't have a personality.
You're not the star of the show.
No, you are not the star of this show.
Yeah.
And and I've heard stories of, certain vendors asking clients to do certain things on the wedding day for their socials, or just like cringy moments of, joining the guests dancing, and, like all of these things are just complete no's for me.
Yeah. It's forgetting your place.
Yeah.
I mean, you are there working, and it's not like you're the help, but
it's
you are the help.
This is the thing. It can be a confusing relationship because, especially me, like I get so close to clients over the course of 18 months. And, by the end of the wedding, do you sort of feel like I've forgotten a child when I say goodbye to them? I'm like, oh, this is so weird. Our relationship is over now. But it's you have to very quickly understand that as close as you've been in that process, the whole reason for this day is so that this couple can spend time with the people who've been important to them throughout their lives.
Yeah.
Their feelings towards me might be genuine, but they don't matter on that day.
Yeah.
And I'm there to facilitate all of these beautiful moments. And the same goes for every vendor.
Yeah.
And I suppose where we've had negative experiences is where we've started to notice that is not that vendor's priority. Things like nitpicking over things in budgets, or not in budgets, sorry, in contracts, when it's very clear that this is what is necessary to make this day happen. Some other things have moved around in the background that are beyond the client's control. And this is the time, a month before the wedding, that we pull together, we set our egos aside, and we make this thing happen for her.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not of that mindset, I sort of question how you ever got into this industry.
Yeah, it's true. If you're not a team player, it's very hard to work weddings because as much as timelines are there, and you're a great example of timelines that I love. And I am weird that I do love a good timeline. I do read all
organized,
the pages.
Fun, Jess.
I love it. I love. And when you sent that big timeline with all the details, and I even remember saying to Dan, I was like, she sent somebody to the church ahead of time to make sure that there's no jackets on the aisle seats, to make sure that there's people sitting on the aisle seats. And I'm like, that is such a pet peeve of mine when, you know, the bride is walking in or the groom is walking in and there's gaps.
These are the things that you learn on the job.
To look at all of that.
Yeah, like, I mean, the first, say, 2 or 3 weddings that I'd done, I didn't consider that. And then it's only looking back afterwards, I was like, no, why didn't I think to do that? And so, at every wedding that you do, something like that happens that you're like, I will never regret not doing that again. And it becomes part of your, blueprint for the next one. So that's why 10 years in, not a lot gets missed.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I liked how you said that you have a little black book with personalities from different suppliers, and you're using that to match, with the client, and that's how you're doing your matchmaking, because we have something a little similar as well ourselves. We have our own planner little black book. Ooh. And what I like to do is, some planners work in a way that you have no communication with the client. It's all through the planner. Other planners, and it may be depending on what coverage they're doing for the client. Are they full planning? Are they planning just, month of, day of, for example? Are they contracting the suppliers or not? So I understand that. And I always make sure to know, okay, what is your preference here? And I make sure to write that down, that, okay, with this planner, she actually wants me to be more proactive, and, contact the clients, and I just CC her in the communication. This planner, all communication goes through her, and that's how she or he prefers. And we have that as well. And also we've gotten to a place that we're very thankful that we can recommend planners as well. And it gives me such pleasure to be able to give back to all these people who have pretty much made what, Under the Veil is and how far we've come. And I do the same thing when I'm sending them, these are planners that I think you should look at. I'm like, Kate is detail-oriented to a T. Aww. Nothing gets past her. Details really matter. The crinkle on that fabric is not going to be there with her and her team. So if that's important, this is your girl. So I thought it was funny how we're all doing something a little similar like that. And I think it is important because it keeps things moving. When you have a great team on the day, the day is long or the weekend is long, but it doesn't feel like that at the end.
I totally agree with you. And that's also something I say to clients. And when I first started saying it, I wondered, do they care? Do they think I'm just being selfish because I want to have fun on the wedding day? But no, I would always say, these guys work so well together, like this hair and makeup, like amazing vibes in the room on the day. Yeah. And we all, it makes for a better day. If,
100%.
Because everyone is willing to step up to what's needed at the time. If you're working with a team that's happy, most of the time our wedding teams are happy. I feel like the vibes are good. There's loads of adrenaline. We love the couple. I've had maybe one where it's not been great vibes and I never want to go back there.
It can feel so long when it's like that. And the days are long. Things are changing so fast that, you have to be, like we said, a team player that how can we make this no a yes? How can we figure around a way to make this that's so important to the client happen? It's not optimal. Things have shifted, but how can we work so that in the end she does get her outside ceremony that she wanted?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I'm all for boundaries. I know I mentioned, there were, people maybe nitpicking over contractual agreements. Yes, I contracts are important, and having boundaries. I have boundaries. Otherwise, I would have no personal life. So it is important. But at the same time, I think when the time comes that the wedding is in 2 or 3 weeks, and something beyond anyone's control has happened, like, you just set yourself aside and you make it happen.
100%. Can you give me like some examples of how a team player, a true, luxury supplier shows up before, on the day, and maybe even after? Because I know sometimes we forget we've shot the wedding, we're editing, so that client is still ours, but that client is still yours as well. I mean, you're dealing with that client probably weeks after the wedding, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, not in a sort of a very small capacity. We do sort of say our formal goodbyes at the venue. And then, it's about tying up little bits and bobs. But, by and large, there are no payments left to be made. It's really just about like waiting for the photographer, those deliverables. But that's the nice bit. It's like, I heard you're getting your sneak peek in a few days, and I love to be able to pass on that news. Or, I had a little look myself. It looks amazing. And it's so nice to think of couples on their honeymoon or wherever they are, just like sitting down, getting the glass of wine and reliving the whole thing. But sorry, your question was before.
Examples of like how a supplier will show up, and I won't even say a luxury supplier, but somebody that you're like, okay, this person has shown up exactly, or maybe even surprised you with their service before. And it doesn't need to be a photographer. Just if you can think of any examples or things that you really like when suppliers do ahead of time.
So it's funny because for every other supplier, your biggest body of work is on the day. For you guys afterwards also. But for us, the event itself is maybe 10% of what we're doing with the client. Overall, the work is all beforehand. And so I sometimes feel for other vendors apart from us, there's very little that you have to do to be excellent beforehand. And it's just being really efficient with your communication. And it's offering information before it needs to be asked for. So you guys are amazing at it, just like really comprehensive package guides, offering a little bit of your time so the clients can get to know you before the event, and being really open with that. And I suppose just seeing a desire to understand what the event is about to be, rather than just being like, I just show up, it's all the same, I just get there and it happens. And those are the kind of things that firstly make us want to work with a vendor again, because it just makes our job easier. It makes us feel confident beforehand that you guys know exactly what's going on, everything's going to run smoothly. But also just makes the client feel cared for. And, I don't know if I don't want to say it's not like a role. I don't mean it to seem like a falsehood, but it is kind of part of our role to make the client feel like theirs is the only wedding this year, or like we really, really care about it, like dying to hang out with your bridesmaids, or your dad is so funny. And none of that is fake. I love the dads especially. I really get very attached to them. But it's not something that you can minimize the importance of, I think. So to me, that's before. Those are what I want to see from vendors before. And then it's like, read the timeline, come back on it, come back with notes, because we're not the expert on everything. It's like, by the way, did you think about the fact that actually we probably should head out at sunset, and it's amazing here, and what about doing the portraits there? And I'm like, yes, let's do that. So that, and then so on the day, showing up super punctually, in your best form. showing up with great will. So something that bugs me is sometimes, it doesn't happen too often, but sometimes the vendor will want the job. And so they'll do the job for the rate that the client wants. Mm-hmm. If you agree to that, you have to approach it as if you're being paid double. I can't even sense an inch of resentment.
Yeah.
I want everybody to, I want everyone to feel that they're getting what they want from the thing.
Yes.
So if you don't feel you're getting what you want, don't take it on.
Yeah.
Give your whole self to it. So that on the day, looking great, looking sharp, smart, not wearing a red dress. Again, you are not the main character. Mm-hmm. It's about blending into the background. And yeah, just being prepared to stand on your feet for 16 hours and never ask when you're getting your dinner. It will come when it's ready to come to you.
It's so funny because even on Instagram, I had done a little question box of like things that, you'd want vendors to understand about your job. And venue coordinators and planners alike were messaging being like, your food will be served. We haven't forgotten about you.
I know.
Don't come in and half an hour after you're in, ask when you're eating and this venue coordinator was like, I have been on my feet for 10 hours.
Yeah.
You're coming in here now.
I haven't had a glass of water since 7 a.m.
And you're asking for your food already or when that's going to be, especially if it was already in the timeline, when and where
it's something eating. It's something you mostly only see with newbies, or like, just a little too overexcited or like, we can get like a free Coke from the bar. I think with seasoned vendors, you realize you come with, like you guys, with your hydration salts, little packet of nuts, and you just keep yourself going. And if you get to sit down and have a lovely dinner, half an hour after the guests have started having their dinner, like what a nice privilege. Now, I'm not saying being fed is a privilege, but you know what I mean.
Yes, 100%. So to finish off, I was thinking of something last night when I was reading through and adding my notes. Do you think, in your opinion, is luxury something you price or something you become?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. Because, even looking at my own experience, as I sort of grew further into the luxury end of things, imposter syndrome is a huge thing. And, so your service can increase and you're giving a service that's, worthy of a luxury tag. But until you start to charge for it, what's the point? If you're running yourself ragged doing 4 times as many weddings as you should a year because you're not charging enough, firstly, your service will suffer a little bit, and you're not embodying that luxury experience. Yeah. But equally, you need to get to a level where you're worth that price tag. So, I mean, this is why wedding planning in particular is a very slow growing business, because it's like inch by inch. It's like, your service gets better, you up your price a little bit. Then it gets a bit better, and then maybe you can get a staff member, and then your service gets even better. Yeah. And it's like, and then maybe you might take it a little bit too far, and then it's like, no, it was actually perfect where it was. Let's just stick with this for a while. Let's just get really good at what we're doing and have a life as well.
Exactly, and that's important, and it's something we were just saying before we hit record. And I think for Dan and I, we never got into this business with the clear idea, like I'm going to be I want to do high-end multiple day weddings. It was never how we got into it. We got into it thinking, okay, this is a very cool thing to do. I get paid 500 for one day, 500 euros. That was what was in my head, because before I used to be a commis chef. That's how I worked, and then pastry chef. So I was like, I'm getting a week's wage in one day. Because, you know, when you don't understand in your head, it's like one day I get paid this much. But how we have, you know, come to now only shoot 30 weddings and gradually be working towards shooting a little bit less so that, again, we can give value to all of our clients. And I mean our planners, our couples, our florists that we work with, the bands that we work with, the musicians. We approach weddings now and events always from a service perspective. Like, how can I serve the people that are working with me and making this happen? It is not a Jessica and Danilo's show. How can I show off this amazing work from this florist as well and give her something that she can do? And it's funny because now I understand our clients can be anyone on the wedding day. We've had florists recommend us work. We've had musicians recommend us work. Content creators recommending us work.
Wow, that's a good too.
Planners, you know, cake artists. We literally booked a huge wedding that we're shooting this summer in Ballynahinch Castle because I gave a cake artist from last year her own gallery with all the work that I had shot that was hers. It's all in a neat gallery, and I gave that to her. And I think that's why we want to shoot a little bit less so that we can give people value. And she recommended this huge client who's her best friend.
You guys are so good at including everybody, though, and you're so good at kind of recognizing, I know what these guys need and I'm going to get it for them. And it's so nice to see that does pay back also.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's never like I obviously don't go in thinking like, okay, I'm going to give this cake artist this photo in case she has something.
Yeah.
But it is like when you work with a great team and you have all pulled together to make this event, you know, the best it could possibly be. It is nice because in the end, it is us who hold, you know, the photos and the video of this insane amount of work that has gone into the event.
All happened.
Exactly, yes. And it is nice to be able to gift that to people and you know, for them to share and for them to add to their website and for that to book them more work. It's very rewarding.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's been really good, Kate. Thank you so much for your honesty and chatting to me.
Oh, thank you.
It was such a pleasure to hear your story and how Love and Gatherings came to be.
I've had such a nice time chatting with you, Jess. Thank you so much.
And I'll see you soon.
See you soon. See you in wedding season.
Yes.